the player destroys the Amulet of Kings. Martin Septim speaks the name of a ritual older than language, and his body erupts into gold and scale and wingspan enough to fill the temple district sky. Mehrunes Dagon, four-armed, lava-skinned, large enough to crush districts underfoot, recoils. The dragon made of Emperor crashes into the Daedric Prince, drives him backward through a gate that seals the moment Dagon crosses the threshold, and then the dragon freezes. Gold bleeds to stone. The statue remains in the temple courtyard, frozen mid-roar, and the Oblivion crisis ends. The player receives a title, a suit of armor, and the gratitude of a shattered empire. What the game does not explain: the amulet's destruction deactivated White Gold Tower, the metaphysical anchor beneath the Imperial City, and removed one of the pillars holding linear reality in place. Martin didn't just save Cyrodiil, he paid a price the Empire still doesn't understand. This is the Tower War. It has no armies, no declarations, no painted maps in war rooms. It spans every game in the Elder Scrolls series and defines conflicts players assume are political, theological, or factional. The Nerevarine destroys the heart of Lorkhan to stop Dagoth-Ur and breaks Red Mountain's anchor. The hero of Kvatch shatters the amulet to stop Mehrunes Dagon and breaks White Gold Tower's anchor. The Dragonborn walks the throat of the world and may destabilize Snowthroat's function, depending on choices made with Paarthurnax and the Greybeards. Every hero in the series has dismantled part of Nirn's structural integrity while saving the world from immediate disaster. And none of them, not the player, not the quest givers, not the factions celebrating victory, grasps what they've done. The towers aren't monuments to dead kings or convenient fast travel markers. They are reality stabilizers, metaphysical anchors that prevent the cosmos from collapsing back into the pre-creation void, and they are falling one by one. Here's the roadmap. First, what towers actually are and why the name misleads. Second, convention. The moment the gods locked reality into place and made the first tower. Third, the Tower War timeline. How Red Mountain fell, how White Gold fell, and how Walkbrass bent time itself. Fourth, the Thalmor's real plan. Not a political empire, but metaphysical genocide designed to unmake existence. Fifth, why heroes keep breaking towers without knowing it. Sixth, what happens when all the towers fall and convention unravels. Seventh, why the Tower War stays invisible to the factions fighting it. Eighth, what remains: Snowthroat, Green-Sap, the others, and their vulnerabilities. Finally, the moral calculus, whether Mundus is worth preserving and whether the Thalmor might be right. By the end, the Tower War will be visible, not as obscure metaphysics, but as the framework every major event in Tamriel operates within. The pillars hold up the sky. But the pillars are cracking and someone is holding the hammer. Towers are not architecture. The name itself is the first layer of misdirection. When the game presents White Gold Tower as the central spire of the Imperial City, or when lore mentions Adamantine Tower on the Isle of Balfiera, or when the throat of the world rises over Skyrim's tundra, the natural assumption is that these are buildings, remarkable, ancient, politically significant, but fundamentally stone and mortar. This is wrong. The tower is not the structure. The structure is a marker, a physical echo of something metaphysical. The actual tower is the anchor point in reality that prevents Mundus, the mortal plane, from dissolving back into the unformed chaos that existed before the gods agreed on what existence means. To understand towers, start with Adamantine Tower. It sits on the Isle of Balfiera in High Rock, a massive, impossible structure of stone that predates mortal civilization. According to the monomyth, Adamantine Tower is where convention occurred, the moment the Aedra gathered after Lorkhan tricked them into creating Mundus and debated what to do with him. Time itself begins at convention. Before it, the Dawn Era, a non-linear, semi-mythic period where events happen out of sequence, where the same story has 6 contradictory versions and all are true. At convention, the gods made a choice. They punished Lorcan, tore out his heart, shot it across the continent where it landed in what would become Red Mountain, and in doing so, they established cause and effect. Past, present, future. Linear time. Adamantine Tower is the moment that decision became permanent. The structure on Balfiera is the physical manifestation, the marker left behind, but the true tower is the metaphysical anchor that keeps that decision locked in place. Red Tower, called Red Mountain, works the same way. The volcano in Morrowind is visible, physical, geographically obvious, but the tower is not the mountain. The tower is the heart of Lorcan buried beneath it, the divine stone that continues to anchor reality even after Lorcan himself is dead. The Dwemer discovered this. They built Kagranak's tools to tap the heart's power, and the attempt to use it caused the entire Dwemer race to vanish in a single moment. Their skin turned to brass, their existence folded into the Numidium's construction. The Tribunal, Vivek, Almalexia, Sothasil, claimed the tools afterward and used them to siphon divinity from the heart for centuries, sustaining their godhood while Red Tower continued to function. When the Nerevarine destroys the heart of Lorcan in the climax of Morrowind, the game frames it as stopping Dagoth and freeing Morrowind from the Blight. What actually happens? The stone is severed, Red Tower deactivates, and one of Nirn's reality anchors stops functioning. The Tribunal loses their divinity, not because Dagoth is gone, but because the metaphysical engine sustaining them has been destroyed. White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil follows the same structure. The physical tower in the Imperial City is visible, magnificent, crowned with the dragonfires that burn when a Dragonborn Emperor lights them. But the tower's anchor is the Amulet of Kings, the Chim El Adabal, the stone that binds Akatosh's covenant with Alessia. The amulet is not a symbol. It is a metaphysical lock that keeps Oblivion separate from Mundus, that prevents Daedric princes from manifesting fully on Nirn. When the amulet shatters and Martin speaks the Dragonfire's final ritual, White Gold Tower deactivates. The gates close because the barrier is reset in a new configuration, one that no longer requires the amulet or the Dragonfires or a Dragonborn bloodline. The cost: White Gold no longer functions as an anchor point in the tower network. The Empire survives, but the metaphysical pillar beneath it is gone. Walk Brass, the Numidium, is the anti-tower. Where other towers anchor reality, Numidium denies it. The Dwemer built it as a refutation engine, a god machine designed to impose the will of its user onto existence itself and force reality to comply. When activated, Numidium does not stabilize, it fractures. The warp in the west, the dragon break at the end of Daggerfall, occurs because Numidium is activated and 6 different factions gain control of it simultaneously, each using it to reshape history in their favor. The result? All 6 outcomes happen at once. Time splits and reconverges, and the Iliac Bay region is transformed in a single apocalyptic weekend that no one can explain afterward. Numidium is not part of the tower network. It is a weapon aimed at the network, and every time it activates, reality bends. Here is the pattern. Towers are metaphysical anchors, not buildings. Each tower has a stone, a physical or conceptual object that serves as the lock. Destroy or remove the stone, and the tower deactivates. The structures built around them, Adamantine Spire, Red Mountain's volcano, White Gold's central tower, are markers, echoes, monuments to the anchors beneath. The towers do not generate power. They maintain stability. They hold Convention's decision in place. They prevent Mundus from unraveling back into pre-creation chaos. Back into the void where time does not exist and reality is negotiable. And across Tamriel's history, someone or something has been systematically destroying them. The Tower War begins at Red Mountain in the year 3E 427. The Nerevarine, reincarnation of Indoril Nerevar, fulfills Azura's prophecy and destroys the heart of Lorcan using Kagranak's tools. In-game, This stops Dagoth-Ur's plans to use Akolakan, the second Numidium, to conquer Tamriel. From a metaphysical perspective, it severs Red Tower's stone. The heart does not vanish. The lore suggests it cannot be destroyed, only removed from the world, but its connection to Nirn is cut. Red Tower, the oldest active tower after Adamantine, goes dormant. The Tribunal loses access to the divinity they've siphoned for millennia. Vivek disappears. Almalexia goes mad and is killed by the Nerevarine in the Tribunal expansion. Sotha Sil is already dead, murdered by Almalexia before the Nerevarine arrives. Within a year, Morrowind's 3 living gods are gone, and the province begins its decline. 6 years later, in 3E 433, White Gold Tower falls. The Oblivion crisis unfolds as Mehrunes Dagon invades Cyrodiil, enabled by the mythic Dawn cult's assassination of Emperor Uriel Septim VII and his heirs. The Amulet of Kings, the stone that binds Akatosh's covenant, is the key to stopping the invasion, but the key is also the target. Martin Septim, the last heir, shatters the amulet in a ritual that binds his soul to Akatosh and manifests the dragon god in Mundus, long enough to drive Dagon back into oblivion. The gates close. The dragonfires go dark permanently. White Gold Tower's stone is destroyed, and the tower deactivates. The hero of Kvatch saves the world and breaks the second pillar. Between these two events sits Walk Brass. The Numidium activates at the end of Daggerfall, during the warp in the west in 3E 417. The game's ending is famously ambiguous. 6 major factions compete for control of Numidium, and the player's choice determines who wins. Except the canonical outcome is that all 6 factions win simultaneously. Numidium is activated by the Blades, the Underking, the King of Worms, Daggerfall, Wayrest, Sentinel, and Orsinium all at once, and the resulting paradox fractures time itself. The Dragon Break lasts 3 days. When it resolves, the Iliac Bay has been politically transformed. Multiple kingdoms have merged or vanished, and no one can agree on what happened. Walkbrass does not deactivate a tower. It weaponizes the concept, using Numidium's refusal engine to collapse and reconstitute reality on a regional scale. The brass tower does not anchor, it overwrites. Crystal-like lore, the tower in Somerset, falls sometime during or after the Oblivion crisis. The specifics are murky. Early Thalmor records claim Daedric forces damaged it during the crisis, but other sources suggest the Thalmor themselves dismantled it after seizing control of Somerset. What is clear, by the time of Skyrim, the Crystal Tower is no longer functioning as an anchor. The Ultima who know this keep it quiet. The Thalmor who orchestrated it keep it secret. Snowthroat, the tower associated with Skyrim and the Throat of the World, remains ambiguous. The stone is unknown. Theories range from a cave, cryptic and unsatisfying, to the time-wound the Dragonborn enters during the main quest, to Paarthurnax himself. Skyrim's main quest involves the Dragonborn learning Dragonrend, confronting Alduin on the Throat of the World, and either killing or sparing Paarthurnax. If Paarthurnax is the stone and the Dragonborn kills him, Snowthroat may deactivate. If the Time Wound is the stone and the player's actions destabilize it, the same result. The game does not confirm this, but the pattern holds. Heroes solve crises, and in doing so, risk or directly cause tower collapses. The timeline reveals the acceleration. One tower falls every decade after 3E 417. Red Mountain in 427, White Gold in 433, Crystal Tower shortly after. The towers are falling faster than they stood, and the factions positioned to understand this, the Moth Priests, the Sigic Order, the Elder Council, are silent, withdrawn, or ignorant. Which raises the question, who benefits from this? Who wants the towers to fall, and why? The answer is the Aldmeri Dominion, not the political entity, though they are the instrument, but the theological position beneath it. The Thalmor are not empire builders. They are existential terrorists, and their endgame is not conquest. It is the annihilation of Mundus itself. Ultima theology, particularly the strain the Thalmor follow, holds that Mundus is a prison. The mortal plane is the result of Lorcan's trick. He convinced the Aedra to create the world, and in doing so, he bound them into linear time, stripped them of immortality, and condemned their descendants, the Mer, especially the Altmer, to mortality. Before convention, before the towers locked reality into place, the Aedra existed in a state of pre-creation divinity, timeless, deathless, unlimited. The Thalmor's stated goal, buried in internal documents and interpretations of Altmer religious texts, is to return to that state. To do so, they must undo convention. And to undo convention, they must deactivate all the towers. The evidence for this is scattered but consistent. Commentary on the Mysterium Xarxes, written by Mankar Cameron, leader of the Mythic Dawn cult, articulates a version of this theology. Mundus is oblivion, Lorcan is the true Daedric prince, and mortality is damnation. Cameron's interpretation is extreme and heretical, but the root theology, Mundus as curse, convention as trap, aligns with Thalmor doctrine. The Thalmor dossiers found in Skyrim reveal their manipulation of the civil war, their suppression of Talos worship. Talos as the ninth divine poses metaphysical threats to their plan, and their long-term positioning across Tamriel. The Great War, fought between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion from 4E 171 to 175, ends with the White Gold Concordat, a treaty that bans Talos worship, cedes territory, and gives the Thalmor legal authority to operate within the Empire's borders. The Concordat is humiliating for the Empire, but for the Thalmor, it is strategic positioning. They are not interested in ruling Cyrodiil. They are interested in controlling access to White Gold Tower, ensuring it stays deactivated, and accelerating the collapse of the remaining towers. The Thalmor believe that if all towers fall, convention unravels. Linear time ends. The barriers between Mundus and Aetherius dissolve. Mortality ceases. The Altmer, and possibly all Mer, return to the pre-creation state their ancestors occupied before Lorcan's trick. This is not genocide in the conventional sense. It is metaphysical genocide, the unmaking of the mortal plane and everyone who cannot or will not ascend with them. Humans, beastfolk, perhaps even Dunmer and Bosmer, who do not share Altmer theology, erased, returned to void, or worse. The reframe is this. Players have assumed the Thalmor are racist supremacists building an elf empire. This is surface. The Thalmor are apocalypse cultists executing a multi-century plan to end existence as it is currently configured. They do not want to rule Tamriel, they want to unmake it, and every tower that falls brings them closer. The heroes are helping them, not intentionally, not knowingly, but the pattern is undeniable. The Nerevarine destroys the heart of Lorcan to stop Dagoth-Ur, Red Tower falls. The hero of Kvatch shatters the amulet to stop Mehrunes Dagon. White Gold falls. The last Dragonborn may kill Parthenax, destabilize the Time Wound, or otherwise interfere with Snowthroat's function while stopping Alduin. Each hero solves the immediate crisis. Each hero pays a price the game does not name. They dismantle part of the metaphysical infrastructure holding reality together. This is not a failure of the heroes. It is a feature of the Tower War's design. The crises that threaten Tamriel, Dagoth-Ur's rise, the Oblivion crisis, Alduin's return, are immediate, visible, catastrophic. The tower's function is abstract, distant, invisible to anyone without metaphysical training. The choice presented to the hero is always the same. Save the world now, or preserve a cosmic structure you don't understand and let everyone die. The hero saves the world. The tower falls. The long-term consequence is deferred, invisible, and catastrophic. The Thalmor understand this. They do not need to destroy the towers themselves. They need only to ensure that crises arise which force heroes to destroy them. Did the Thalmor engineer Dagoth-Ur's rise? No. Dagoth existed before the Third Aldmeri Dominion consolidated power. Did they engineer the Oblivion crisis? No. Mankar Cameron's cult predates Thalmor prominence, but did they capitalize on the aftermath? Did they position themselves to control White Gold Tower once its stone was destroyed? Did they use the Empire's weakness post-crisis to extract concessions that further their long-term goals? Yes. The Thalmor do not create every crisis. They steer the aftermath. They ensure that the solutions to each crisis deactivate another tower. And when the last tower falls, convention ends. What happens then? The metaphysical models are speculative. No mortal has witnessed it, but the structure is clear. Towers anchor reality by maintaining the decisions made at convention. Linear time, cause and effect, the separation of Mundus from Oblivion and Aetherius, the mortality of mortals and the immortality of Daedra. Remove enough anchors and the structure collapses. Time fractures, not a localized dragon break like the warp in the West, but a permanent unraveling where past, present, and future lose coherence. The barriers between planes dissolve. Daedric princes manifest in Mundus without restriction. Mortals lose the ability to die in any meaningful sense. They cycle, reincarnate, or dissolve into Aetherius or Oblivion, depending on their soul's alignment. The Aedra, already diminished and distant, vanish entirely, or revert to pre-creation forms. Mundus does not explode. It stops being a fixed thing. It returns to the state it occupied before Adamantine Tower, the Dawn Era, where reality is negotiable and nothing is stable. Michael Kirkbride, former developer and lore contributor, describes this as Landfall in his post-release writings, an apocalyptic event where Numidium returns, the towers are gone, and Nirn's future fractures into irreconcilable timelines. Kirkbride's work is not officially canonical, but it draws from in-game metaphysics and extends them. Landfall, in his telling, is what happens when convention fully unravels. The Thalmor succeed, the towers fall, and the survivors, if there are survivors, must navigate a world where reality itself is hostile. The CRODA text explores this in mythic terms, but the core principle is consistent with in-game lore. No towers, no stable Mundus. The Thalmor would frame this as a liberation. They believe mortality is suffering, that Lorcan's creation of Mundus was the original sin, and that returning to pre-creation divinity is the only ethical outcome. From their perspective, the Tower War is a mercy. They are ending a cycle of birth, death, and suffering that should never have begun. They are correcting Lorcan's mistake. They are saving the Altmer, and possibly all who accept their theology, from eternal imprisonment in linear time. From the mortal perspective, it is extinction. Humans do not have a pre-creation state to return to. They are Lorcan's people, bound to Mundus, incapable of existing outside it. Beastfolk, similarly tied to the mortal plane through different creation myths, have no escape. Even Dunmer and Bosmer, who might theoretically ascend, face theological and political conflicts with Altmer supremacy that may exclude them. The Thalmor's plan does not preserve everyone. It erases most of Tamriel's population and unmakes the world they inhabit. And the heroes, the player characters, who save the world time and again, are the ones who dismantled the defenses that could have stopped it. The Tower War stays hidden because no one wants to see it. This is not a failure of intelligence or a conspiracy of silence, though both play roles. It is a structural problem. The factions and institutions best positioned to understand what towers are and what their collapse means are the same factions that cannot or will not act. The Moth Priests read the Elder Scrolls and see the future fracturing. But the scrolls show possibility, not certainty. Every timeline branches, and the priests cannot identify which thread is real until it happens. The Sigic Order understands tower mechanics better than anyone left alive, but they withdrew from Tamriel politics centuries ago, retreating to Artaeum to study in isolation. They intervene only in the most extreme crises. They retrieved the Eye of Magnus from Winterhold when it threatened to tear a hole in reality. but they do not explain why. And they do not share their knowledge with outsiders. The Blades, once the Empire's intelligence arm and protectors of the Dragonborn bloodline, were scattered and nearly destroyed after the Great War. By Skyrim, they are reduced to Delphine and Esbern, two survivors hiding in Riften and Riverwood, and their focus is on dragons, not metaphysics. The political factions, the Empire, the Stormcloaks, the Jarls, the great houses of Morrowind, are blind to the Tower War because they operate on timescales measured in decades, not millennia. The Empire sees the Thalmor as a rival empire, a military and political threat to be contained or defeated. The Stormcloaks see them as foreign occupiers, religious oppressors banning Talos worship and humiliating Skyrim. Both are correct on the surface level, but neither grasps the deeper agenda. The Thalmor are not building an empire. They are positioning themselves to witness and survive the end of convention. The political conflicts consuming Tamriel are proxies, distractions, and in some cases, deliberate accelerants. The Skyrim Civil War, for instance, weakens the Empire and Skyrim simultaneously, ensuring neither can effectively resist Thalmor maneuvering. The Thalmor dossier on Ulfric Stormcloak, found in the Thalmor embassy during Skyrim's main quest, makes this explicit. Ulfric is listed as an asset, not because he serves the Thalmor willingly, but because his rebellion serves their interests. A Stormcloak victory, or an Imperial victory, both work in the Thalmor's favour. The goal is prolonged conflict, not a specific outcome. The war bleeds both sides, destabilises Skyrim, and ensures no unified Nordic force can threaten Thalmor plans for Snowthroat. The mages who might understand, the College of Winterhold, the Synod, the remnants of the old Mages Guild, are fractured and inward-focused. The College of Winterhold is isolated geographically and politically, distrusted by Skyrim's Nords after the Great Collapse destroyed much of the city. The Synod and the College of Whispers, the two successor organizations to the Mages Guild, are locked in bureaucratic rivalry and primarily concerned with gaining the Empire's favor. None of these institutions have the resources, the mandate, or the institutional memory to recognize the Tower War as it unfolds. The knowledge exists, in books, in fragments, in the minds of individual scholars, but it is not centralized, not prioritized, and not actionable. The Thalmor, by contrast, have made tower mechanics their central doctrine. They have consolidated Altmer religious texts, maintained institutional continuity across the Fourth Era, and positioned agents throughout Tamriel to monitor and influence events near remaining towers. They do not publish their plans. They do not debate them in public forums. They execute them behind layers of diplomatic language, religious justification, and political maneuvering. The White Gold Concordat is a legal treaty. The suppression of Talos worship is framed as a theological correction. The manipulation of the Skyrim Civil War is deniable. The Tower War is invisible because the Thalmor have designed it to be. And there is a second reason. Most factions pursue proxies without realizing it. The Amulet of Kings is seen as political legitimacy, the symbol of the Dragonborn bloodline and the right to rule Cyrodiil. Its destruction in the Oblivion crisis is mourned as the end of the Septim dynasty, not as the deactivation of White Gold Tower. The Heart of Lorkhan is seen as the source of the Tribunal's godhood and Dagoth Ur's power, not as the stone anchoring Red Tower. The Elder Council, the Blades, even the Moth Priests focus on the immediate political and religious implications. Who will rule? How will the Dragonfires be maintained? What happens to succession? Without ever naming the metaphysical consequence. The proxies are real. The loss of the amulet does destabilize Cyrodiil's political order. The destruction of the heart does end the Tribunal's reign, but these surface-level crises obscure the deeper pattern. The factions see the ripples and miss the stone that caused them. The heroes themselves never learn what they've done. The Nerevarine is told to destroy the heart to stop Dagoth Ur, and the Nerevarine does so. The game provides no dialogue option to ask what the heart actually is beyond the source of Dagoth Ur's power. The hero of Kvatch is told the amulet must be used in the ritual to stop the Oblivion crisis, and Martin performs the ritual. No one explains that White Gold Tower will deactivate as a result. The last Dragonborn is told to stop Alduin, and depending on player choices, may kill Paarthurnax or destabilize Snowthroat in the process. The game never frames these actions as metaphysical vandalism, because the immediate crisis is real and urgent. Dagoth Ur is spreading the blight. Mehrunes Dagon is invading Cyrodiil. Alduin is consuming souls. The heroes act in good faith, saving the world from immediate destruction, and the long-term consequence, the tower's fall, is invisible to them and everyone around them. This is the genius of the Tower War's design, whether by Thalmor intention or cosmic irony. The war does not require villains who twirl moustaches and monologue about their plans. It requires crises that force heroes to make impossible choices, and it requires factions to focus on proxies while ignoring the framework. The Thalmor do not need to destroy every tower personally. They need only to ensure that crises arise near towers, and that the solutions to those crises involve the tower's stones. They steer, they position, they capitalize, and when the last tower falls, they will be ready. The remaining towers are few, and their status is contested. Adamantine Tower, the oldest and the first, still stands on the Isle of Balfiera in High Rock. Its stone is convention itself, the moment the gods agreed on reality, and no one knows how to deactivate it, or whether it can be deactivated. Adamantine is the anchor of anchors, the template from which all other towers derive their function. If Adamantine falls, convention ends immediately. If it cannot fall, it may be the last pillar holding reality in place, even after all others collapse. The lore is unclear, and no game has explored Balfiera in depth. Adamantine Tower is the silent constant, the oldest mystery, and the one tower no faction openly discusses. Snowthroat, the tower associated with Skyrim and the throat of the world, remains active but vulnerable. The stone is unknown. The leading theories are, first, a cave, a cryptic phrase from obscure texts that offers no actionable detail. Second, the time-wound the Dragonborn enters during the Skyrim main quest, where Alduin is banished forward through time by the ancient tongues. If the time wound is the stone, the Dragonborn's use of Dragonrend and the confrontation with Alduin may have destabilized it. Third, Paarthurnax himself, the ancient dragon who mentors the Greybeards and aids the Dragonborn. If Paarthurnax is the stone and the Dragonborn kills him at the blade's insistence, Snowthroat deactivates. The game does not confirm any of these, but the ambiguity is itself significant. Snowthroat is contested ground. The Thalmor have no open presence on the throat of the world, but the civil war ensures Skyrim remains weak and divided, and a divided Skyrim cannot defend its tower. Green-Sap, the tower associated with Valenwood, is the least understood. The walking city of Falinesti, which migrates seasonally across Valenwood, is sometimes identified as the tower, or its physical marker. But Falinesti has not walked in decades. It rooted in place and has not moved since. Other sources suggest the Hist, the ancient sentient trees of Black Marsh, are connected to Green-Sap, though this conflicts with geographic and cultural boundaries between Valenwood's Bosmer and Black Marsh's Argonians. Still others propose the ooze, a substance or entity referenced in fragmentary texts, as the stone. Green-Sap's obscurity may be its protection. No faction has targeted it directly, because no one agrees on what it is or where its stone resides. But obscurity is not invulnerability. The Thalmor control Valenwood politically through the Dominion, and if they identify Green-Sap's stone, they can move against it without interference. Orichalk Tower, associated with Yokuda, the ancient homeland of the Redguards, is presumed inactive. Yokuda sank beneath the ocean at the end of the First Era, destroyed in a cataclysm that most sources attribute to the Redguard Swordsingers' overuse of their reality-cutting techniques. If Orichalk was anchored to Yokuda's landmass or its stone was tied to a physical location on the continent, it went down with Yokuda. No one has confirmed this, and the Red Guard's own accounts of Yokuda's fall are fragmentary and contradictory, but Orichalk has not functioned as an anchor in living memory. It may already be gone. Crystal-like Law, the tower in Somerset, is confirmed deactivated. The specifics remain murky. Some accounts blame Daedric forces during the Oblivion crisis. Others suggest the Thalmor dismantled it deliberately after consolidating control of Somerset in the Fourth Era. What matters? By the time of Skyrim, the Crystal Tower is not functioning. The Altmer know this. The Thalmor know this, and neither group speaks of it openly. The Crystal Tower's fall is the silent proof of the Thalmor's agenda. They allowed or orchestrated the destruction of their own homeland's tower because its deactivation serves the larger goal. Wark Brass, the Numidium, remains scattered but feared. After the warp in the west, Numidium vanished. Whether destroyed, hidden, or collapsed into paradox is unknown. Components of Numidium appear in various Dwemer ruins, and the knowledge to rebuild or reactivate it exists in fragments across Tamriel. The Thalmor have shown interest in Dwemer technology, and some theories suggest they seek to reconstruct Numidium as a final weapon, not to anchor reality, but to shatter what remains after the other towers fall. Numidium is the anti-tower, the refusal engine, and if the Thalmor can control it during Landfall, they may use it to accelerate Convention's unraveling. The inventory is grim. Red Tower, deactivated. White Gold Tower, deactivated. Crystal Light Law, deactivated. Orichalk, presumed inactive. Wark Brass, scattered, weaponizable. Remaining, Adamantine, Snowthroat, Green-Sap. 3 pillars, possibly fewer, holding up a reality designed to rest on 8 or more. The Thalmor need only deactivate 1 or 2 more towers to push Mundus past the tipping point. The metaphysical structure can sustain some losses. It has so far, but there is a threshold. Once enough anchors fail, Convention collapses not because the last tower falls, but because the remaining towers cannot compensate for the missing load. The sky does not need every pillar, but it needs enough, and Tamriel is running out. The vulnerabilities are clear. Snowthroat is contested, its stone unknown, and its guardian, Parthernax, can be killed by the player. Green-Sap is obscure, its stone unidentified, and its homeland controlled by the Dominion. Adamantine is ancient and untargeted so far, but if the Thalmor conclude it must fall to complete their plan, they will find a way. The towers are not defended, because no faction understands they need defending. The Empire does not post guards around Snowthroat. The Bosmer do not protect Green-Sap. The Bretons on Balfiera do not recognize Adamantine Tower as anything more than an old ruin. The infrastructure holding reality together is unguarded, and the only faction with a plan is the one trying to destroy it. And here the moral calculus becomes unavoidable. Should the towers stand? The easy answer, the answer most mortals would give, is yes. Mundus sustains life. It allows for love, art, growth, choice, suffering, and redemption. Mortals are born, live, die, and their souls move to Aetherius or Sovngarde or the Dreamsur or wherever their beliefs and actions take them. The cycle is meaningful, the struggle is real. Lorcan's creation, whatever his intent, produced a world where mortals can become heroes, where meaning is forged through action, where the prisoner, the player, can break prophecy and reshape fate. To unmake Mundus is to erase all of this. Every family, every city, every story, every choice. It is genocide on a metaphysical scale. But the Thalmor's position is not irrational. From Altmer theology, Mundus is a prison. Mortality is suffering. The cycle of birth and death is not meaningful. It is a curse imposed by Lorcan's trick. Before Convention, the Aedra existed in timeless, deathless divinity. They were not diminished, they did not age. They did not lose their children to disease or war or entropy. Lorcan convinced them to create Mundus, and in doing so, he stripped them of their immortality. and bound their descendants into linear time. The Altmer, as the closest descendants of the Aedra, bear the weight of this curse most directly. Every Altmer born is another soul trapped in the mortal coil, doomed to die, doomed to suffer, doomed to be less than their ancestors. The Thalmor believe returning to pre-creation divinity is not destruction, it is liberation. It is the restoration of what was stolen. And if humans and beastfolk cannot ascend because they are tied to Mundus, that is tragic but necessary. They were never meant to exist in the first place. They are Lorcan's people, products of the trick, and when the trick is undone, they will return to wherever souls go when their plane of existence ceases. The Thalmor do not see themselves as villains. They see themselves as saviors, ending a cycle of suffering that should never have begun. They are correcting the original sin. They are acting on behalf of their ancestors, their gods, and every Altmer who will never be born into mortality if the plan succeeds. From their perspective, the mortals who resist are the ones prolonging the curse, clinging to a false existence, choosing suffering over transcendence because they cannot imagine anything else. And then there is the third position, the one the Dwemer may have held and the one Numidium embodies. Reject the question. Do not debate whether Mundus is a gift or a curse. Do not accept the terms of convention or the authority of the gods who made it. Deny the framework itself. The Dwemer looked at the tower system, at the gods who created it, at the metaphysical locks holding reality in place, and they said no. They built Numidium as a refutation engine, a god that does not anchor or create, but denies. Numidium imposes the will of its user onto reality and forces existence to comply. It does not care about towers or convention or the ethics of creation. It simply is, and whatever it says is real becomes real, and whatever it rejects ceases. The Dwemer disappeared attempting to use this power. They may have succeeded in a way no one understands, or they may have failed catastrophically and been erased. But the principle remains. There is a third path beyond preserve Mundus and unmake Mundus. The path is to reject the authority of those who made Mundus and rewrite the rules entirely. It is the most radical option, the most dangerous, and the one no surviving faction has the knowledge or will to pursue. The Tower War is not a war between good and evil. It is a war over whether existence as currently configured is worth preserving. The mortals say yes, because they are alive and existence is all they have. The Thalmor say no, because they remember, or believe they remember, what was lost when Lorcan tricked the Aedra. The Dwemer said the question is irrelevant and built a machine to overwrite it. And the heroes, the players, the prisoners who break fate and reshape Tamriel, they are the ones caught in the middle, making choices that tip the balance without ever understanding the scales. Which brings the argument full circle. The towers are not monuments. They are not dungeons or set pieces or fast travel markers. They are the pillars holding convention in place, the anchors preventing Mundus from collapsing back into pre-creation void. Every major conflict in the Elder Scrolls series, Dagoth Ur's rise, the Oblivion crisis, Alduin's return, the Skyrim civil war, is part of the Tower War, whether the participants know it or not. The Nerevarine, the hero of Kvatch, the last Dragonborn, they saved the world and broke the pillars. The Thalmor positioned themselves to capitalize on each collapse and accelerate the next. The remaining towers are few, undefended and vulnerable. And the question is no longer if the last tower falls, but what happens when it does. Convention was the moment the gods locked reality into place. The towers maintain that lock. The lock is failing, and when it fails completely, Tamriel and everyone in it will discover whether the Thalmor are right, whether the mortals are right, or whether the question was wrong from the beginning. The Tower War has no armies, it has no declarations, it has no painted maps, it has only consequences. And the consequences are coming. The answer to what replaces convention when it fails is not academic. It is the reason the Sigic Order withdrew to Artaeum, the reason the Moth Priests go blind reading Elder Scrolls, and the reason the Thalmor execute their plan across centuries instead of decades. The models are speculative, but the metaphysical structure is consistent. Remove the towers and linear time fractures. Not a temporary dragon break like the warp in the West. Localized, 3 days. Resolved when Numidium's activation paradox collapses back into a single timeline. A permanent fracture where cause and effect lose coherence. Past, present, and future cease to operate as sequence and become negotiable states. Events happen, unhappen, and happen again differently. Mortals experience this as madness. Memory conflicts with reality. History rewrites itself mid-conversation, and the dead return not as undead, but as people who never died because the timeline where they died is now one option among many. The barriers between planes dissolve. Oblivion and Mundus, kept separate by the tower's anchoring function, bleed into one another. Daedric princes manifest directly on Nirn without needing anchors, cults, or summoning rituals. Mehrunes Dagon does not need gates. He simply is in Cyrodiil, in Skyrim, in Blackmarsh simultaneously, because geography loses stable meaning. Molag Bal's Cold Harbour overlaps with Tamriel's cities. Sheogorath's shivering isles fold into Mundus, and the distinction between mad and sane becomes obsolete because reality itself is incoherent. The Daedric princes, who thrived in the chaotic pre-creation void, are not harmed by this. They are empowered. Mundus was the limitation imposed on them. Convention said, "You stay in Oblivion, mortals stay in Mundus, and the barriers hold. Remove the towers, and the barriers fall, and the princes reclaim the world Lorcan carved out of their domain. The Aedra, already diminished and distant, vanish entirely or revert to pre-creation forms. The 8 divines, 9 if Talos is included, are the gods who gave themselves to create Mundus. They are weakened, sleeping, barely capable of manifesting except through avatars or miracles. Akatosh manifested in Oblivion only because Martin Septim shattered the amulet and sacrificed himself in a ritual older than the Empire. That was the last time an Aedra appeared directly in Mundus, and it cost everything: the amulet, the dragonfires, the Septim bloodline. If the towers fall and convention ends, the Aedra cannot hold their forms. They dissolve back into Aetherius, return to pre-creation states, or fragment into aspects that no longer cohere as individual gods. Talos, the 9th divine, is particularly vulnerable because he is a mortal made god, a being who achieved divinity after convention. If convention unravels, Talos may be the first to fall, hence the Thalmor's obsession with banning his worship. Every Nord who stops praying to Talos weakens him. Every shrine destroyed is another thread cut. The Thalmor are not simply erasing a political rival, they are systematically dismantling a god. Mortals lose the ability to die in any meaningful sense. Death, as experienced in Mundus, is a function of linear time and convention's rules. You are born, you live, you die. Your soul moves to an afterlife. Remove convention, and the soul's journey becomes unstable. Mortals may cycle endlessly, reincarnating without memory or purpose. They may dissolve into Aetherius or Oblivion depending on their alignment, but without the structure of linear time, there is no after to move toward. They exist in all states simultaneously, alive, dead, unborn. The Redguard's concept of the far shores, the Nord's Sovngarde, the Khajiit's sands behind the stars, all of these afterlives depend on Mundus functioning as a stable plane with stable rules. Remove the towers, and the afterlives may collapse, strand souls, or merge into Oblivion's many realms. The dead do not rest, they are simply lost. The Thalmor's model for what happens next is ascension. They believe that when Mundus unravels, the Ultima, and those prepared for the transition, will return to pre-creation divinity. They will shed mortality, rejoin the Aedra in Aetherius, and exist in the timeless, deathless state their ancestors occupied before Lorcan's trick. This is their endgame. This is their paradise. The suffering of mortals ends because mortality ends. The curse of linear time ends because time ends. And the Altmer, the purest descendants of the Aedra, will be the first to ascend, followed by other Mer who accept the theology. Humans, beastfolk, and those who cling to Mundus will be left behind, erased, dissolved, or trapped in the collapsing wreckage of a plane that no longer functions. The problem with this model is that it assumes ascension is possible, that the Altmer can return to pre-creation states, and that Aetherius will accept them. There is no evidence for this. The Altmer's ancestors, the Aldmer, were Mer who existed after convention, not before it. They are descendants of the Aedra, not the Aedra themselves. The theological claim that destroying the towers will restore divinity is based on interpretation of ancient texts, metaphysical speculation, and religious faith, not demonstrated fact. The Psijic Order, who understand tower mechanics better than any other faction, withdrew from Tamriel. They did not endorse the Thalmor's plan. They did not join the effort to deactivate towers. Their silence suggests doubt. If ascension were guaranteed, if the Thalmor's model were sound, the Psijics, who can see through time, who study towers and Elder Scrolls and the mechanics of reality, would have acted. Instead, they retreated to Artium and closed the door. Which raises the possibility that the Thalmor are wrong. That deactivating the towers does not lead to ascension, but to oblivion in the literal sense. Not oblivion the plane, but the void. The non-existence that predates convention. The Aedra agreed to create Mundus because they saw value in it. Lorcan's trick worked because the other gods chose to participate, however reluctantly. If they had wanted to remain in pre-creation states, they could have refused. They gave themselves to Mundus because Mundus was worth creating. Unmaking it does not restore what was lost. It erases what was built. The Thalmor may believe they are returning to paradise, but they may be engineering extinction. And then there is Numidium's answer. Walkbrass does not preserve Mundus or unmake it. It denies the question. Numidium operates on a metaphysical principle called refusal. It rejects the terms of existence and imposes a new set. When Numidium activates, it does not anchor reality or dissolve it, it overwrites it. During the warp in the West, 6 factions gained control of Numidium simultaneously, each using it to reshape the Iliac Bay according to their will. The result was a dragon break, a localized collapse of causality where all 6 outcomes happened at once. When the break resolved, the Iliac Bay had been transformed in ways that contradicted recorded history, and no one could agree on what had actually occurred. Numidium does not care about towers or convention or the gods' decisions. It simply says no to whatever exists and replaces it with whatever its user commands. If the Thalmor reconstruct Numidium, and there is evidence they are interested in Dwemer technology, including ruins in Skyrim and fragments of Dwemer research, they could use it as a final weapon during Landfall. Not to unmake Mundus through tower collapse, but to rewrite the post-convention reality into something new. This would not restore the Aedra or grant ascension. It would impose Thalmor will onto existence itself, creating a new world governed by Altmer metaphysics, Altmer theology, Altmer hierarchy. It would be the ultimate act of supremacy, not ruling Tamriel, but becoming Tamriel, rewriting reality so that the Altmer are the architects, the gods, the inevitable outcome. The Dwemer attempted this. They built Numidium to reject the gods' authority and replace it with Dwemer logic. When Kagranak struck the heart of Lorcan with his tools, intending to power Numidium fully, the entire Dwemer race vanished in a single moment. Their bodies did not collapse or explode, they simply ceased to be present in Mundus. Their skin turned to ash, later found as Dwemer metal or dwarven ingots, a brass-like substance that persists across millennia. Where they went is unknown. Some theories suggest they achieved a form of collective ascension, merging into Numidium's construction, and becoming part of the brass god. Others suggest they zero-summed. They achieved chim, awareness of the dream of the godhead, but failed to maintain their individuality and were erased. Still others suggest they are trapped in a state between existence and non-existence, alive but not present, waiting for Numidium to activate fully and restore them. The lesson is clear. Using Numidium to rewrite reality is the most dangerous gambit available. The Dwemer had the metaphysical knowledge, the tools, the will, and the ambition, and they vanished. If the Thalmor attempt the same, they may succeed, or they may erase themselves and everyone else in the process. Walkbrass is not a tower. It is the anti-tower, the refusal engine, the weapon that says no to gods and mortals alike. And if it activates during Landfall, when the towers are down and convention is unraveling, there is no predicting what it will do. It may impose order, it may create a new reality, it may erase everything and leave only void. The models converge on a single truth. What replaces convention depends on who controls the transition. If the towers fall naturally through neglect or crisis, Mundus collapses into pre-creation chaos. The Dawn era returns, time fractures, Daedric princes reclaim the world, and mortals dissolve or cycle without purpose. If the Thalmor control the collapse and their theology is correct, the Ultima ascend and Mundus is unmade cleanly, with those who cannot ascend left behind. If the Thalmor are wrong, everyone dies. Not in the sense of going to an afterlife, but in the sense of ceasing to have ever existed in a coherent timeline. And if Numidium is involved, reality itself becomes a weapon, and the outcome is whatever the brass god's user commands, if the user survives the activation. The stakes are absolute. This is not a war over territory or resources. It is a war over whether existence continues, and in what form. And the heroes, Nerevarine, hero of Kvatch, last Dragonborn, have already made the choice that tips the scales. They destroyed towers to save the world, and in doing so, they brought the world closer to ending. The Thalmor did not need to defeat the heroes. They needed the heroes to win, because every victory dismantles another anchor. The Tower War is a trap with no exit. Solve the crisis and break the tower, or let the crisis consume Tamriel. The heroes chose survival. The Thalmor counted on it. Which leaves the final question. Can the Tower War be stopped? Can the remaining towers be defended, or can new towers be built? The answer is theoretically yes, practically no. Towers are not constructed in the conventional sense. They are not raised by masons or enchanted by mages. They are metaphysical anchors that emerge when a sufficiently powerful reality-defining event occurs and is locked into place. Convention created Adamantine Tower because the gods agreed on the terms of existence and made that agreement permanent. Red Tower emerged because Lorcan's heart, a divine artifact of unimaginable power, was embedded in Red Mountain and continued to anchor reality even after Lorcan's death. White Gold Tower was built by the Aelids, but it functioned as a tower only because the Amulet of Kings, forged from the crystallized blood of Akatosh through Alessia's covenant, was placed within it and bound to the dragonfires. The tower is not the structure. The structure is the marker. The true tower is the metaphysical lock, and creating a lock requires an event of world-shaping significance. Could a new tower be made? Yes, if someone could engineer a convention-level event and lock it into place. This would require, first, an artifact or entity of divine power, something on the level of the Heart of Lorcan, the Amulet of Kings, or Numidium itself. Second, a ritual or event that anchors that artifact to Nirn and establishes it as a reality stabilizer. Third, the knowledge and will to execute the plan without triggering catastrophic side effects. The Dwemer tried this with Numidium and vanished. The Tribunal used the Heart of Lorcan to sustain their godhood for millennia, but they did not create a new tower. They siphoned power from an existing one. Talos achieved divinity, and may function as a tower equivalent, which is why the Thalmor works so hard to erase him. But Talos' status is contested, and his tower is not physical or easily defended. The most plausible path to creating a new tower involves mantling, a metaphysical process where an individual becomes so perfectly aligned with a god, role, or concept that they become that thing and replace it. The hero of Kvatch mantles Sheogorath in the Shivering Isles expansion by taking on the Mad God's role, performing his duties, and ultimately replacing him when Sheogorath transforms back into Jiggalag. By Skyrim, the hero of Kvatch is Sheogorath. They speak with his voice, command his realm, and are recognized as him by other Daedric princes. Mantling is how mortals become gods in the Elder Scrolls. If a mortal could mantle Lorcan, or mantle the concept of convention itself, they might be able to create or restore a tower. But mantling requires perfect alignment, and Lorcan is dead, his heart destroyed, his body split, his spirit scattered. Mantling him may be impossible, and mantling convention would require understanding it so perfectly that the mortal becomes the living embodiment of the agreement the gods made at the beginning of time. The more practical answer is to defend the remaining towers. Snowthroat must be protected. If Paarthurnax is the stone, he must survive. If the Time Wound is the stone, it must not be further destabilized. If a cave is the stone, someone must identify which cave and guard it. Green-Sap must be located and its stone identified before the Thalmor do the same. Adamantine Tower, the first and oldest, must be studied to understand whether it can fall and what would happen if it does. This requires the factions of Tamriel to recognize the Tower War, to prioritize it above their political conflicts, and to dedicate resources to metaphysical defense instead of territorial conquest. The problem is that no faction has the knowledge, the unity, or the will. The Empire is broken, weakened by the Great War and divided by the Skyrim Civil War. The Stormcloaks are focused on independence and Talos worship, not metaphysics. The College of Winterhold is isolated and distrusted. The Psijic Order has withdrawn. The Blades are nearly extinct. The Moth Priests read the Elder Scrolls, but do not act on what they see. The great houses of Morrowind are rebuilding after the Red Year and the Argonian invasion. The Redguards in Hammerfell resisted the Thalmor successfully during the Great War, but are focused on their own borders, not tower mechanics. The Khajiit are divided into client states. The Argonians are isolationist. And Black Marsh has never needed the towers. The Hist protected them during the Oblivion crisis in ways no other race replicated. And the Thalmor are unified, patient, and 3 steps ahead. They have consolidated Somerset, Valenwood, and elsewhere under the Dominion. They have agents throughout Cyrodiil and Skyrim. They have access to White Gold Tower, now deactivated. They control Crystal Light Law. They manipulate the Skyrim Civil War to keep the Empire and the Nords weak. They suppress Talos worship to weaken the Ninth Divine. They research Dwemer ruins, seeking Numidium fragments, or the knowledge to rebuild it. And they wait, because time is on their side. Every year, every crisis, every hero who saves the world brings them closer to Landfall. The Tower War cannot be won by the factions as they currently exist. It can only be delayed, and the delays are running out. Snowthroat stands, but for how long? The Dragonborn may kill Paarthurnax. Alduin's defeat may destabilize the Time Wound. The Civil War may escalate, drawing Thalmor intervention directly onto the throat of the world. Green-Sap stands, but no one knows where it is or how to protect it. Adamantine stands, but if the Thalmor decide it must fall, they will find a way. A crisis, a hero, a solution that requires the stone's destruction. The pattern has held for 3 towers already. There is no reason to believe it will break now, which means the only remaining question is not whether the Tower War can be stopped, but what the last generation of mortals will choose to do when they realize the sky is falling. Will they fight the Thalmor, knowing the fight may be hopeless? Will they seek to build new towers? attempting the impossible because the alternative is extinction? Will they flee to Etherius, Oblivion, or other planes, abandoning Mundus to its fate? Or will they accept the Thalmor's theology, agree that mortality is a curse and Mundus is a prison, and welcome the unraveling as liberation? There is no right answer, only consequences. The towers are not monuments, they are not background scenery. They are the pillars holding convention in place, the anchors preventing the cosmos from collapsing into pre-creation void. Every hero in the Elder Scrolls series has fought in the Tower War without knowing it. Every major conflict, Dagoth-Ur, the Oblivion Crisis, Alduin's Return, the Civil War, is part of the larger pattern. The towers are falling, the Thalmor are winning, and the question is not if the last tower falls, but what remains when it does. The answer depends on who controls the transition. If the towers fall naturally, Mundus collapses into Dawn-era chaos. If the Thalmor control the collapse, they may ascend, or they may erase everyone, including themselves. If Numidium is involved, reality becomes a weapon, and the outcome is unpredictable. And if someone, some faction, some hero, some prisoner, finds a way to defend or rebuild the towers, then Mundus survives. But that requires recognizing the war, understanding the stakes, and acting before the last pillar cracks. The Tower War has no armies, no declarations, no painted maps. It has only consequences. And the consequences are not hypothetical. They are unfolding across every game, every quest, every choice the player makes. The towers are the framework. Everything else, the politics, the factions, the dragons, the Daedra, is built on top of them, and the framework is failing. The Nerevarine broke Red Tower. The hero of Kvatch broke White Gold. The last Dragonborn may break Snow Throat. The next hero, if there is a next hero, will face the same choice. Save the world now, or preserve the structure that makes the world possible. And when the last tower falls, when convention finally unravels, the only thing left will be the question the Dwemer posed, and Numidium answered. What comes after the sky is proven a lie. The Thalmor believe they know. The mortals hope they are wrong. And the towers, silent and ancient and crumbling, hold the answer in their stones, until they don't. The irony is that the Tower War's endgame may already be written in the Elder Scrolls themselves, and no one can read it clearly enough to act. The Moth Priests, the blind monks who serve the Empire and interpret the scrolls, are the only mortals with sanctioned access to these reality-defining texts. They undergo rituals involving ancestor moths, insects whose wings carry patterns that allow human eyes to perceive the scrolls without immediate destruction. Even with the moth's aid, reading an Elder Scroll extracts a price. The reader's vision deteriorates with each use, and eventually, they go completely blind. The scrolls show all possible futures simultaneously, every branch, every outcome, every timeline that might emerge from present choices. When a moth priest reads a scroll seeking guidance on the Tower War, they see futures where the towers stand, futures where they fall, futures where Mundus ascends, futures where it dissolves, futures where Numidium rewrites everything, and futures where none of this matters because something else, some variable not yet visible, intervenes. The scrolls are not prophecies, they are possibility maps. They show what can happen, not what will happen. The future is mutable until the moment it becomes the present, and even then, dragon breaks prove that the present itself can split and reconverge. The Moth Priests cannot give the Empire a clear answer, because the scrolls do not contain clear answers. They contain every answer, layered on top of each other, and the priests must interpret which thread is most likely, most stable, most actionable. And when the subject is tower mechanics and the unraveling of convention, the threads multiply into incomprehensibility. The priests see landfall, they see ascension, they see the void, they see Numidium, they see outcomes with no names, horrors and glories the scrolls cannot articulate, because they have not happened yet and may never happen. And so the priests report fragments, offer vague warnings, and ultimately fall silent because the scrolls themselves are ambiguous on whether the Tower War can be won or whether it is already lost. This is why the Psijic Order withdrew. They do not have moth priests, but they have their own methods, scrying through time, manipulating probability, studying the liminal spaces between Mundus and Oblivion. The Psijics saw the same thing the moth priests see: multiple futures, no certainty, and a threshold point approaching where small choices cascade into apocalyptic consequences. The Psijics concluded that intervention might make things worse. If they act to defend Snow Throat and their intervention creates the crisis that destroys it, they become the problem. If they move against the Thalmor openly and the war accelerates tower collapse, they hasten the outcome they are trying to prevent. The Psijic Order's withdrawal to Artaeum is not cowardice or indifference. It is paralysis born of perfect information. They see too much. They understand too well. And so they wait, appearing only when the immediate threat is so catastrophic that inaction guarantees disaster, like the Eye of Magnus in Winterhold, which threatened to tear a hole in reality and required Psijic intervention to contain. The Blades, by contrast, are blind in a different way. They served the Dragonborn emperors for centuries, dedicated to protecting the bloodline and, by extension, the Amulet of Kings. When the amulet shattered and the Septim line ended, the Blades lost their purpose. By Skyrim, 200 years later, they have reoriented around dragon slaying, their ancient role before they became the Empire's intelligence service. Delphine and Esbern, the last known Blades, are single-mindedly focused on killing dragons and demand that the Dragonborn kill Paarthurnax to prove loyalty. They do not understand that Paarthurnax may be Snowthroat's stone, that killing him might deactivate the tower, that their obsession with draconic threats is tactically correct, but strategically disastrous. The Blades see the trees and miss the forest. They are operating on old doctrine, old grudges, and old assumptions that made sense when the Empire stood and the dragonfires burned, but are catastrophically obsolete in a post-Oblivion crisis world. The College of Winterhold, the last major institution of magical study in Skyrim, is too isolated to matter. The Great Collapse of 4E122 destroyed most of Winterhold, leaving only the college standing, a miracle attributed to the college's wards, which also made the Nords suspicious that the college caused the collapse. The city's survivors blame the mages. The Jarl tolerates the college, but keeps it at arm's length. The college itself is inward-focused, concerned with research, teaching, and surviving Nordic hostility. When the Eye of Magnus appears in Sarthal and Ancano, a Thalmor advisor embedded in the college attempts to use it to achieve godhood and unmake reality. The college is caught completely off guard. They did not know the Eye was buried beneath Sarthal. They did not know Ancano's true agenda. They did not anticipate the Psijic's intervention. The college stumbles into a tower-adjacent crisis, resolves it with the Dragonborn's help, and learns nothing about the broader pattern. The Archmage who emerges from the crisis, potentially the Dragonborn, if the player pursues that questline, gains access to the college's resources, but not the knowledge to connect Magnus's Eye to White Gold's fall or Snowthroat's vulnerability. The Companions, Skyrim's warrior guild, are even further removed. They are cursed with lycanthropy, beast blood granted by Hircine through a pact made generations ago, and their internal questline revolves around breaking the curse or embracing it. They are warriors, not scholars. They do not think in terms of towers or metaphysics. They think in terms of honor, glory, and the next fight. When the Dragonborn helps them cure the beast blood or chooses to keep it, the Companions are focused entirely on the immediate moral and spiritual consequences of lycanthropy. The broader implications, that Hircine's influence over Skyrim's greatest warriors might weaken Nordic resistance to external threats, that the Companions could be a bulwark defending Snow Throat if properly informed, never arise. The companions are a hammer, and everything looks like a nail. The Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood are even less relevant. They are criminal organizations concerned with profit, survival, and internal politics. The Thieves Guild's questline involves restoring their fortunes by returning the skeleton key to Nocturnal, a Daedric artifact that the guild's former leader, Mercer Frey, stole and used to drain the guild's luck. The skeleton key is metaphysically significant. It is one of Nocturnal's most powerful artifacts, capable of unlocking not just physical locks, but metaphysical ones, including potentials and possibilities. In the wrong hands, the skeleton key could theoretically be used to unlock a tower's stone or interfere with convention's locks. But the Thieves Guild does not understand this. They see the key as a tool for heists and a symbol of Nocturnal's favor. They return it to Nocturnal because the guild's luck has run out and they need her blessing restored. The metaphysical implications are invisible to them. Similarly, the Dark Brotherhood, Tamriel's premier assassins guild, is consumed by internal schisms, betrayals, and contracts. They serve Sithis, the Void personified, and the Night Mother, a spiritual conduit for Sithis' will. The Dark Brotherhood could theoretically oppose the Tower War on Sithis' behalf. The Void does not need the towers to fall because the Void predates and will outlast convention. But the Brotherhood is fractured, nearly destroyed during Skyrim's questline, and focused entirely on survival and killing contracts. They are tools of chaos, not defenders of order. The Jarls of Skyrim, the regional rulers who theoretically govern the province, are paralyzed by the civil war. Half support the Empire, half support Ulfric Stormcloak's rebellion, and all are focused on immediate threats: bandit raids, dragon attacks, resource shortages, political maneuvering. The civil war is the dominant crisis. When dragons return and Alduin threatens to devour the world, the Jarls respond tactically, recruit guards, fortify cities, offer bounties for dragon kills. But do not ask why dragons returned or what it means that Alduin, the World Eater, is active again. The Dragonborn stops Alduin, and the Jarls are grateful, but they do not connect Alduin's return to the broader metaphysical instability caused by tower collapses. They do not realize that the World Eater's awakening is a symptom of convention's failure, that Alduin is a force designed to end the current Kalpa and begin the next, and that his return suggests the current Kalpa is nearing its end. The Empire, meanwhile, is a shadow of its former self. The Mede dynasty, which rose after the Septim line ended, never commanded the same legitimacy. The Amulet of Kings is gone, the Dragonfires are dark, and the covenant with Akatosh is broken. The White Gold Concordat ceded territory to the Aldmeri Dominion, banned Talos worship, and allowed Thalmor justiciars to operate within imperial lands. The Elder Council, the bureaucratic body that advises the Emperor, is focused on holding the Empire together, managing provincial unrest, maintaining trade routes, and preparing for a potential Second Great War. They do not have the metaphysical knowledge to recognize the Tower War, and even if they did, they lack the resources to address it. The Empire is in triage mode. It cannot defend towers when it cannot defend its own provinces, and the Thalmor exploit every gap. They embedded Ancano in the College of Winterhold to monitor and potentially seize the Eye of Magnus. They manipulate Ulfric Stormcloak to prolong the civil war, ensuring Skyrim remains divided and weak. They suppress Talos worship, not just for theological reasons, but to weaken the Ninth Divine, who may function as a tower equivalent, or who at minimum anchors human belief in the Empire's divine mandate. They research Dwemer ruins, seeking fragments of Numidium or the tools of Kagranak. They maintain absolute control over Somerset, Valenwood, and elsewhere, ensuring no internal dissent disrupts their long-term planning. They have agents in every major city, dossiers on every significant figure, and contingency plans for every scenario. The Thalmor are not improvising. They are executing a strategy developed over centuries, refined through the Oblivion crisis and the Great War, and now entering its final phase. The asymmetry is total. The Thalmor have unity, knowledge, and patience. The factions opposing them, Empire, Stormcloaks, College, Blades, Companions, Jarls, are fragmented, ignorant of the stakes, and focused on immediate crises. The Thalmor do not need to win every battle. They need only to ensure that each crisis resolves in a way that furthers tower collapse. The heroes do the rest, which brings the focus back to the prisoner, the Nerevarine, the hero of Kvatch, the last Dragonborn. They are not ordinary mortals. They are prisoners, a metaphysical archetype described in Elder Scrolls lore as individuals unbound by fate. Normal mortals are subject to prophecy, destiny, and the currents of history. Prisoners are not. They exist outside causality's normal flow. They can break prophecies, reshape events, and make choices that should not be possible according to the Elder Scrolls. The Nerevarine fulfills Azura's prophecy, but the prophecy's fulfillment is not guaranteed until the prisoner makes the choices that bring it about. The hero of Kvatch is not fated to stop the Oblivion crisis. They choose to. The last Dragonborn is not destined to defeat Alduin. They act, and Alduin falls. The prisoner is the wild card the Thalmor cannot fully control. They can manipulate circumstances, engineer crises, position agents, but the prisoner's choices are genuinely free. This is why every Elder Scrolls game allows the player to ignore the main quest, pursue side content, join factions that oppose one another, and make contradictory choices. The prisoner can kill Paarthurnax or spare him. The prisoner can side with the Empire or the Stormcloaks or neither. The prisoner can return the skeleton key to Nocturnal or keep it. The prisoner can join the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, the Companions, and the College simultaneously, belong to all factions and none, and exist in narrative contradiction without breaking the world. This freedom is metaphysically significant. The prisoner is the only actor in Tamriel who can see the Tower War and choose to fight it, if they understand what they are seeing. The Thalmor cannot predict the prisoner's choices because the prisoner is not subject to the Elder Scrolls possibility maps. The scrolls show what can happen, but the prisoner determines what does happen. If the prisoner learns about towers, understands the stakes, and dedicates themselves to defending Snowthroat, Green-Sap, or Adamantine, they might succeed. If the prisoner builds alliances, unites the Empire and Stormcloaks, recruits the Sigics, mobilizes the College, revives the Blades, they might create a coalition capable of resisting the Thalmor. If the prisoner pursues forbidden knowledge, Chim, mantling, Elder Scrolls, Dwemer research, they might find a way to build new towers or repair the ones that fell. But the prisoner does not know any of this. The games do not explain tower mechanics in depth. The main quests focus on immediate threats, Dagoth Mehrunes Dagon, Alduin, not metaphysical frameworks. The lore is scattered across hundreds of books, cryptic dialogue, and environmental storytelling. A player would need to read deeply, cross-reference sources, and make connections the game does not explicitly draw. And even if the prisoner understands, the game does not offer a questline to defend the towers. There is no save convention main quest. The prisoner can spare Paarthurnax, but the game does not confirm whether this preserves Snowthroat. The prisoner can oppose the Thalmor, but the Civil War questline treats them as a background faction, not the primary antagonist. The tools to fight the Tower War exist, but the narrative does not guide the prisoner toward them, which means the Tower War is not a puzzle the player is meant to solve. It is the framework the player unknowingly operates within. Every choice, every quest, every faction joined or ignored contributes to the larger pattern. The prisoner is free, but freedom without knowledge is indistinguishable from chance. The prisoner saves the world repeatedly, and in doing so, brings the world closer to ending. Not because they are foolish or reckless, but because the crises are real, the stakes are immediate. And the alternative, letting Dagoth spread the blight, letting Mehrunes Dagon invade Cyrodiil, letting Alduin devour souls, is unacceptable. The Thalmor do not need to defeat the prisoner. They need the prisoner to win, and so far the prisoner has obliged. Red Tower fell because the Nerevarine stopped Dagoth-Ur. White Gold fell because the hero of Kvatch stopped Mehrunes Dagon. Snowthroat may fall because the last Dragonborn stopped Alduin. Each victory is a defeat in the larger war, and the larger war is invisible until it is too late. The only question remaining is whether the next prisoner, if there is a next game, a next hero, a next crisis, will see the pattern in time to break it. Whether they will recognize that the choice is not save the world or let it burn, but save the world now and lose everything later, or find a third path no one has articulated yet. Whether they will unite Tamriel, defend the towers, oppose the Thalmor openly, or pursue something even more radical, mantling Lorcan, reconstructing Numidium, rewriting convention itself, or whether they will do what every prisoner before them has done, solve the immediate crisis, break another tower, and leave the consequences for the next generation. The Tower War is not a war that can be won by fighting. It is a war that must be recognized before it can be opposed. And recognition requires knowledge no faction possesses, unity no political structure supports, and time that is rapidly running out. The towers are falling. The Thalmor are patient. The heroes are blind. And the sky, held up by pillars that no one guards, cracks a little more with every passing year. The question is not whether Mundus will survive the Tower War. The question is whether anyone will recognize the war before the last pillar falls, and the answer becomes irrelevant. Whether the Psijics will emerge from Artaeum with a solution. Whether the Moth Priests will extract a clear warning from the Elder Scrolls. Whether the next prisoner will see what the Nerevarine, the hero of Kvatch, and the last Dragonborn could not. Whether anyone will realize before it is too late that the pillars hold up the sky, and someone has been sawing through the base for centuries. The sky does not fall all at once, it falls one pillar at a time. And Tamriel is running out of pillars. The next game, if Bethesda follows the pattern, if the prisoner returns, will likely be set in Hammerfell, or perhaps High Rock, or Valenwood, or some combination of provinces not yet explored in modern engines. Each location carries implications for the Tower War. Hammerfell, the homeland of the Redguards, successfully resisted the Aldmeri Dominion during the Great War and after, refusing the White Gold Concordate's terms and fighting the Thalmor to a stalemate that forced withdrawal. If the next game is set there, the prisoner will encounter a province that defeated the Thalmor militarily, but may not understand what the Thalmor were actually attempting. The Redguards see themselves as victors in a territorial conflict. They do not see themselves as obstacles in a metaphysical war. Orichalc Tower, if it is tied to Yokuda, and Yokuda is indeed sunk, is already lost. But the Redguards' cultural memory of Yokuda's fall, the sword singers who allegedly sank their own continent through reality-cutting techniques, may contain clues about tower mechanics that other cultures have forgotten. The sword singers wielded the Shehai, the spirit sword, a weapon manifested from the wielder's soul that could cut through anything, including, according to some accounts, the atomos, the fundamental particles of reality. If this is true, if the Shehai could sever metaphysical bonds the way it severs physical matter, then the sword singers may have inadvertently destroyed Orichalc Tower when they sank Yokuda. The technique was lost, forbidden, or abandoned after the catastrophe, and the surviving Ra-Gada, the warrior wave, conquered Hammerfell and established a new homeland. But the knowledge may persist in fragments, in old texts, in the ruins of ancient Yokudan cities, in the oral traditions of Hammerfell's elders. A prisoner investigating Hammerfell's past might uncover not just what happened to Orichalc, but how. And if the Shehai could destroy a tower, perhaps it could defend one. High Rock presents different challenges. The region is fractured into dozens of city-states, petty kingdoms, and merchant republics, each jealous of its autonomy and locked in perpetual political maneuvering. The Bretons are part Elven, descendants of Needies who interbred with Aldmer, and their magical traditions are among the most sophisticated in Tamriel. Adamantine Tower sits on the Isle of Balfiera within High Rock's borders, and is the oldest tower, the site of convention, the moment reality was locked into place. If the next game explores High Rock and Adamantine becomes a focal point, the stakes escalate immediately. Adamantine is the template tower, the first anchor. If it falls, convention may end instantaneously, without the gradual unraveling that the collapse of other towers produces. The Thalmor have not targeted Adamantine openly, but if they conclude that destroying it is necessary to complete their plan, High Rock becomes the final battlefield. The Bretons, however, are not unified. They compete with one another as much as they cooperate. A Thalmor infiltration of High Rock would exploit these divisions, playing kingdoms against each other, funding wars, positioning agents, and ensuring that when the crisis arrives, when Adamantine is threatened, no unified Breton force can respond. The prisoner in High Rock would face not a single enemy, but a web of enemies, each pursuing different agendas. Thalmor agents working to destabilize Adamantine, Breton nobles scheming for advantage, Daedric cults seeking to exploit the chaos, and perhaps even a faction of mages or scholars who understand tower mechanics and are pursuing their own solution, mantling, Numidium reconstruction, or something even more dangerous. Valenwood offers a different angle. Green-Sap Tower, the least understood of the remaining towers, is somewhere in Valenwood's forests. The Bosmer, wood elves bound by the Green Pact with Y'ffre the forest god, live in walking cities like Falinesti and harvest resources without harming the forest, eating only meat, wearing only imported plant materials, and treating Valenwood's vegetation as sacred. The Bosmer are under Aldmeri Dominion control, brought into the Third Dominion after the Void Nights, the crisis where the moons disappeared for 2 years and the Thalmor claimed credit for returning them. The Bosmer are loyal to the Dominion, but loyalty built on a lie is fragile. If the prisoner can prove the Thalmor did not return the moons, or if the Bosmer learn that Green-Sap is targeted for destruction, the alliance might fracture. Green-Sap's obscurity is both protection and vulnerability. No one knows where it is, so no one can attack it, but no one can defend it either. The Bosmer themselves may not know they live near a tower, or they may have integrated it so thoroughly into their culture and religion that it is invisible as a separate entity. Y'ffre, the god who taught the Bosmer the Green Pact and stabilized their shape, Bosmer were shapeshifters before the pact, may be connected to Green-Sap in ways that make the tower not a structure or artifact, but a living covenant, a constantly renewed agreement between the Bosmer and the forest. If this is true, destroying Green-Sap would require breaking the Green Pact or corrupting Y'ffre's influence, both of which the Thalmor might attempt through religious subversion, environmental destruction, or Daedric intervention. Each location offers a different lens on the tower war. Hammerfell forces the prisoner to confront a tower that is already lost, and a culture that may have the knowledge to rebuild or defend others. High Rock places the prisoner at the oldest tower, the one whose fall ends everything, in a province too divided to mount a unified defense. Valenwood hides the tower in plain sight and challenges the prisoner to uncover it before the Thalmor do. Each game could explore the tower war from a different angle, with different stakes and different tools. But all of this assumes Bethesda continues the pattern, and there is a possibility, perhaps even a likelihood, that the tower war is not meant to be resolved in-game, that it is world-building, context, and atmosphere rather than plot, that the next game will introduce a new crisis, a new hero, and a new set of immediate threats, and the tower war will remain in the background, hinted at in books and dialogue, but never brought to the foreground. This is the pattern so far. Morrowind's main quest is about Dagoth-Ur, not Red Tower. Oblivion's main quest is about Mehrunes Dagon, not White Gold Tower. Skyrim's main quest is about Alduin, not Snowthroat. The Tower War is visible only to players who read deeply, who connect fragments across games, who understand that the metaphysical framework is more important than the immediate crisis. And perhaps this is intentional. Perhaps the Tower War is not a problem the prisoner is meant to solve, but a tragedy the prisoner is meant to enact. Each game is a heroic story. Save the province, stop the villain, become the legend. And each game is also a horror story. You saved everyone today and doomed them tomorrow, and you will never know. The player experiences triumph. The law whispers doom. The prisoner is free, but freedom without knowledge leads to the same outcome as fate, unless the knowledge spreads, unless the player base, the community that dissects law and builds wikis and debates metaphysics in forums, forces Bethesda to address the Tower War directly by making it impossible to ignore. Unless the next game's marketing, trailers, and pre-release lore drops hint so strongly at towers, Thalmor endgames, and conventions collapse that the community demands a resolution. Unless Bethesda decides that the Tower War has been background long enough, and it is time to make it foreground, to give the prisoner the tools and knowledge to fight it, to offer a questline that does not just save the world, but preserves it. This would require a tonal shift. The Elder Scrolls games are about power fantasy. The player becomes the hero, joins every faction, masters every skill, defeats every threat. A game where the goal is to prevent apocalypse rather than cause explosions, where success is measured in preserved structures rather than defeated enemies, where the antagonist is not a dragon or a Daedric prince, but a slow, methodical collapse of reality itself. That is a harder sell. It is a game about defense, preservation, and knowledge, rather than conquest, glory, and combat. It is a game where the prisoner must unite factions that hate each other, convince scholars to share forbidden knowledge, and make choices that sacrifice immediate power for long-term stability. But it is also the game the lore has been building toward. Red Tower fell in 2002, White Gold fell in 2006. Snowthroat's status is ambiguous as of 2011. The pattern is clear. The endgame is approaching. If the next game is set in the 4E 200s or later, 2 centuries after Oblivion, the Tower War may have progressed to the point where even the factions that were blind can no longer ignore it. The signs would be everywhere: time fractures, localized dragon breaks, Daedric manifestations increasing in frequency and intensity, the barriers between planes weakening, the dead returning in ways that contradict resurrection magic, and the Thalmor positioning openly for the final stage of their plan. The prisoner in that world would not need to discover the Tower War through obscure texts. They would experience it directly. The main quest could begin with a dragon break. The prisoner exists in multiple timelines simultaneously, each version pursuing a different path, and the quest is to collapse the timelines back into one stable outcome. Or the main quest could involve defending the last tower, Snowthroat, Green-Sap, or Adamantine, against a Thalmor assault that is military, political, metaphysical, and theological all at once. Or the quest could involve building a new tower, finding an artifact of divine power, performing a ritual that rivals convention, and anchoring it to Nirn before the old towers fail completely. Or the quest could involve Numidium. The brass tower, scattered and feared, could be the key to everything. The Thalmor want to reconstruct it. The Dwemer used it and vanished. The prisoner could pursue it as a weapon, a tool, or a warning. Numidium does not anchor reality, it denies it. But denial could be useful. If the Thalmor are about to unmake Mundus, Numidium could deny the unmaking. If convention is collapsing, Numidium could refuse the collapse. The danger is that Numidium does not distinguish between good denial and bad denial. It denies whatever its user commands. And if the user commands wrongly, or if Numidium interprets the command differently than intended, the result is catastrophic. The Dwemer vanished attempting this. The warp in the west fractured time across the Iliac Bay. Tiber Septim used Numidium to conquer the Somerset Isles in a campaign so horrific that the Altmer still speak of it in whispers, calling it the Rape of Alanor. A prisoner who reconstructs Numidium would hold the most dangerous weapon in Tamriel's history. They could use it to rewrite convention, to impose a new reality where the towers stand and the Thalmor never rose, where Mundus is stable and mortality is a choice rather than a curse. Or they could zero-sum, erase themselves, and take Mundus with them. Or they could succeed and become something beyond mortal, beyond prisoner, beyond even the Daedra, a new kind of entity, a Dwemer echo or a brass god or a walking dragon break. The questline would be madness, tragedy, and apotheosis all at once. But all of this is speculation. The next game does not exist yet. The Tower War remains unresolved. The Thalmor continue their plan. The factions remain blind. The towers continue to fall. And the players, those who read the lore, who connect the fragments, who see the pattern, wait to discover whether Bethesda will bring the Tower War to the foreground or leave it in the background for another game, another decade, another generation of prisoners who save the world without realizing they are losing it. The tragedy is that the prisoner could stop this. The Nerevarine could have refused to destroy the heart of Lorcan. The hero of Kvatch could have found another way to stop Mehrunes Dagon. The last Dragonborn could unite the Empire and Stormcloaks, recruit the Psijics, mobilize the College, and defend Snowthroat. The tools exist. The knowledge exists, scattered and obscure, but present. The prisoner is free, unbound by fate, capable of choices that should not be possible. But the prisoner is also the player, and the player does not know. The player is handed a quest: stop Dagoth-Ur, stop Mehrunes Dagon, stop Alduin. The player completes the quest. The game congratulates them. The credits roll. The world is saved. And the tower falls, and the player moves on to the next game, unaware that they just participated in apocalypse. This is the final irony of the Tower War. The Thalmor do not need to defeat the heroes. They need the heroes to win. And the heroes, unaware of the stakes, obligingly win every time. The prisoner is the most dangerous force in Tamriel, the one actor who can break fate, reshape prophecy, and rewrite reality. And the prisoner is also the Thalmor's greatest asset, because the prisoner will always choose to save the world now, even if it costs everything later. The question is whether the next prisoner will see the pattern before completing it, whether the next game will offer the knowledge, the tools, and the choice to fight the Tower War instead of advancing it, whether Bethesda will let the player say no to the immediate crisis and pursue the deeper one, whether the prisoner will finally understand that the pillars hold up the sky, and the sky is falling, and saving the world this time requires refusing the quest that every previous prisoner accepted. Until then, the Tower War continues, silent, invisible, inevitable. The Thalmor move their pieces. The factions remain blind. The Moth Priests read Elder Scrolls and see every future except the one that will actually occur. The Psijics wait on Artaeum. The towers crack. And the prisoner, whoever they are, wherever they appear next, will face the same choice. Save the world now. Lose everything later. Or recognize the trap and refuse it. The towers are not architecture. They are anchors, and the anchors are failing. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. One crisis at a time, one hero at a time, one tower at a time. Red Tower fell, White Gold fell, Crystal-like Lore fell, Orichalk sank with Yokuda, Walkbrass waits, scattered and dangerous. Snowthroat stands, vulnerable. Green-Sap stands, hidden. Adamantine stands, ancient and unassailable until it isn't. The math is simple. Mundus was designed to rest on 8 towers. 5 are gone. 3 remain, possibly fewer. The threshold is approaching. The structure is failing. And when the last tower falls, when convention finally unravels, the only question left is whether anyone will remember what the towers were, or whether the unraveling will erase even that. The sky does not announce when it is about to fall. It simply stops being held up. And the people below, going about their lives, fighting their wars, pursuing their goals, never look up until the moment it is too late. The Tower War is not a metaphor. It is not symbolism. It is the literal framework holding reality in place. And it is failing. And no one is defending it. And the heroes who could are the ones dismantling it piece by piece. This is why the towers still rule Tamriel. Not because they are powerful, but because they are necessary. Not because factions fight over them, but because factions do not realize they should. Not because they are impressive structures, but because they are invisible anchors holding everything together. And when the last anchor fails, when the last pillar cracks, when the last tower falls, Tamriel will discover that the pillars were not decoration. They were foundation, and without them, there is nothing to stand on. The Thalmor know this. The Moth Priests suspect it. The Psijics understand it. The prisoners enact it. And everyone else, every Nord, every Imperial, every Dunmer, every Redguard, every Khajiit, every Argonian, lives in the shadow of the falling sky without ever looking up, until the shadow reaches them, and by then, it will be too late to ask why.